Welcome to Unlocking Moves, where we're going to cover the key decision points and pivotal moments that really change the trajectory of successful entrepreneurs and leaders. And I want to hear their real life stories, not just the glory stories, but also the gory stories. Because as I like to say, the bigger the shit show, the bigger the lesson. So speaking of glory stories, my guest today has quite a few of them. And I want to start with my off-the-wall question that I'd like to ask my guest to start the show, Brian. The question is, or the comment is, dude, you're followed on Twitter by Barack Obama. What the hell? How does that happen?
I think he follows a lot of people. It's funny you mention that because when I used to visit my son at college, all his friends were enamored by that same thing. I think he follows like 600,000 people. What's even cooler is I got Tony Hawk to follow me. I have some interesting ones. So I have Jane Fonda, Tony Hawk. I had, who was it? Like Lil Wayne or Wiz Khalifa or something. I can't even remember.
Dude, now I'm impressed. What I was going to do is say, hey, you're kind of full of shit because 550,000 other people are followed by Barack Obama. But now that you mentioned those other ones, I'm back to impressed.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You know what I love about Twitter, and I've been on it since 2007, I think. What I love about it is that celebrities and hard to reach people really back in the day were much more accessible because there was like that wall up, like, okay, you can't physically, attack me. So I've had some amazing conversations with people. I remember with Jane Fonda, we were talking about her son, and she was like, it was something that she said. She was so proud of him. And I remember saying, there's nothing more powerful in the world than a mother's love for her son.
Wow.
Just something that that kind of hit me. Next thing I know, she's following me and I'm following her. And it was great,
I love it. We're in a whole new world. So as you've heard so far, my guest today is Brian Moran, and Brian has a great story. He's been an entrepreneur several times over. He's also been, he's worked for Inc. magazine and Entrepreneur magazine. He's got a solid history in the publication business, working with entrepreneurs. And now he runs a very cool platform and community for entrepreneurs, a small business edge. Brian Moran, thanks so much for joining me on Unlocking Moves.
Kurt, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be one of your first podcasts, right? I'm in the top 10, right?
That's right. Well, I think you're actually number 11. We've had 5 drop, but I don't want to ruin your birthday here, so we'll tell you you're in the top 10.
All right.
If you're just joining us on Unlocking Moves, today's episode is brought to you as usual by HireBetter, the strategic talent partner for growth-minded entrepreneurs everywhere. So, Brian, you've got a great story. As I mentioned, you graduated from Marquette University. I'm sure you're a basketball fan. We talked about you being at Entrepreneur magazine and Inc. magazine. Now you're running a community platform for entrepreneurs. Tell me a little bit about your story and really specifically some surprises along the way with your story.
Well, yeah, thank you. And I love being here. I love being on your show. I've watched a couple of your podcasts already, and I love the guests, and I actually have some great takeaways from them. So, I've been involved in the small to mid-sized business market for over 30 years, if you can believe it. And I've always been drawn to the stories of people who were willing to go out on a limb to chase their dreams. Now, people who said, I've got an idea and I gotta go for it. People who left up the comfort and so-called security of a corporate job to chase something. There's always, whether it was in their DNA or they were the accidental entrepreneur, what drove them to do it. And so for the first half of my career, I was at Success Magazine, Entrepreneur Magazine, Inc. Magazine, and I felt like I was kind of sitting on the sidelines. And then I decided to join them.
Well, your story, people who have ideas and I should have done that, or I can think of the next great thing. The thing you did differently is you didn't just think about it, you actually did it. So we're going to talk about that in a bit. Mm-hmm. So Brian, tell me a little bit about what Small Business Edge does, because I've played around on the platform and you're doing some amazing work for entrepreneurs. Tell me what it does in your words.
So what's interesting is Small Business Edge. We have a newsletter, we have our podcast, we have our website. And it's just a way for business owners to, for us to connect to business owners and have them connect back to us. And obviously we also have a fairly significant social media presence as well. And so it's just I look at it as a conduit. Okay, you're a business owner, you're having a problem, you come visit Small Business Edge or Brian Moran in some way, shape, or form. You tell us about your problem, and then we connect you. If we can't solve your problem, we're going to connect you with people who can. And I love it. And it just keeps me in the mix of everything that's happening. Or I have other people or companies come to us and say, we're looking for these types of entrepreneurs or business owners. And so I think of that like spoken hub, picture. And I like to think of us that, we're in the hub of everything.
I like it. You sound like you're a connector. I'm a connector too. So we want to help and serve people and put good people together doing great things. I love it.
Yeah.
And there's not enough resources for entrepreneurs. It's a lonely business, as you know, and you either have somebody trying to sell you something or, somebody's got an ulterior motive, but I love a community of like-minded individuals where you can learn from each other. Thank you for doing that.
My pleasure. It's selfish because I love what I do. People, I'm getting to be that age. I see some people already retiring. I see, some of my friends have retired and others talk about, moving, retiring and this. If everything goes according to plan, I will never retire from what I do.
Yep. What's the old adage? I never worked a day in my life because I loved what I do. It was not a job. It was a calling. And I can see that my calling is capitalism for good, entrepreneurialism for good. And it sounds like you're doing some of the same things. So tell me how that world might intersect with making the world a better place, but also making money doing it.
Well, I think everything that's good in life is done at a local level. Mother Teresa once said, I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the water and cause many ripples. And with business owners, think about the good that they can do in their local community, brighten up Main Street, provide a product or a service to people at a competitive price, hire local kids, to work in their stores. That makes the world a better place. And everything starts locally. So, I love helping people start a business. You got an idea, let's talk about it. You're in business, how do we make it a better business? And don't go into this thinking, how do I boil the ocean, right? But how can I help people where they are? Then suddenly you're causing a lot of ripples, and those ripples cause ripples.
And I love the way you said that. Basically, you're saying that you don't have to boil the ocean. You don't have to have the great whiz-bang technology that changes the world. But if you change your community, those folks can change communities, and those folks can change communities. Our impact statement at HireBetter is we impact lives by connecting and empowering good people to build great companies. And our idea is similar to yours. We help good people build great companies, and that just a whole ecosystem of good that comes out of that.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to shift gears here for a second, Brian, and talk a little bit about my book, Who's Your Mike? You've read it, and I appreciate your feedback on it in the past. The title character, as you know, is Mike is your bookkeeper turned controller turned CFO who's in over his head. I'd love to hear who your favorite character is and why.
Well, I have a couple. So the Side Hustle Sam, I liked. Harry the Hustler and Right Hand Rita were all some of my favorites. Right Hand Rita is the one that I identify with most because I always feel like that was my biggest weakness, and that is for a lot of business owners, that is their weakness. And Right Hand Rita is the organized one, is the one that gets things done, right? So you're the business owner, you're off conquering new worlds. And Right Hand Rita is cultivating those worlds for you. In fact, the more successful you are, the more Right Hand Ritas you're going to need, because at some point she's going to hit her capacity, and you're going to want to bring in other people. So that's important to recognize. I love Side Hustle Sam because you look at our world today, and there are probably 70 million people who are part of the gig economy. And so they're doing, a lot of different side hustles. And I would say that, you encourage that among your employees. They're going to do it anyway. Maybe they need the money. Maybe it's a passion project, whatever it is they need. The last thing you want them to do is to have to hide that at work. You don't want you want to make sure also it doesn't overlap with the work that you're doing. Saying, hey, Sam, that's great. You got that side hustle, but not 9 to 5, not when you're on my dime, now you're doing my work. But I encourage you to do it after hours or before hours. And if I can help you in any way, that I'd be more than happy to. So those were two that I like because I felt like they were real. Like I know people who are those people.
It's funny. I love the way you gravitated towards the legacy employees, the employees that you'll meet really on your way up. And side hustle, Sam, you hit the nail on the head. Communicate, talk to him or her about their side hustle. Chances are a good percentage of your employees already have a side hustle. Yeah. So embrace it. Just keep that line of communication going so that you can get really their best effort for you, but also you can support them with their side hustle. How cool would that be if you help the next Mark Zuckerberg, with their next project, right?
Yeah.
And then right hand Rita, man, I want to touch on that for a second because that character, that archetype is so important for entrepreneurs like you and I who are really good at sales or business development or figuring out the next product. But speaking for myself, and you and I had this conversation earlier, we suck at details and execution and getting stuff done. Yeah. We need somebody like that. And there are people that are not only really, really good at it, they love doing it. And that's the piece that most entrepreneurs don't appreciate.
Totally agree. And that gives you a 360-degree view of your business. See, there are things that right-hand Rita is going to see and hear. And that what that does is that expands your viewpoint because you as a business owner, you've got blinders on. Every one of us does. If you don't think so, then you're in denial. But what you want is you want people who can see what you don't see and hear what you don't hear.
I love it. Surround yourself with people who do things better than you.
Yes.
So I would love to hear if you have any other characters from your journey that you're like, Kurt, you need to add personal problem Polly, or tell me about a character you think you want to add from your journey. You could leave names out of it for now.
So when you think about employees, right, there are four, they fall into four categories. And this is from Gallup, right? The actively engaged, the engaged, the disengaged, and the actively disengaged, right? So, you want to focus, if you're a business owner, you got to focus on the engaged and the disengaged. If you've got somebody who's actively engaged in your business, thank your lucky stars. They're the person that runs to work, that loves what they do. They have that passion. And that's great. That's such a small percentage, though. I think according to Gallup, that's about 4% of all employees. The actively disengaged, they're the cancer spreaders. They're the bad apples. They're the people you have to get out of your business immediately. So that's like Bad Apple Bob or something, that's a character, right? And sorry for all of my friends named Bob. My son's named Robert. But that Bad Apple Bob is, and Bob for apples. Maybe that's why it clicked. But that is somebody that you need to identify and say, I've got to get this person out of my organization quickly, even if that person is your best salesperson or your biggest contributor, because what it's doing is it's suppressing everything else in your company. Nobody likes to talk to Bad Apple Bob. Nobody wants to hang out with him. He's a chauvinist. He's conceited. He's demanding. And here's what happens more times than not. When you get rid of Bob, everybody else's productivity rises. It's almost like he was a weight or she was a weight against your entire organization. It's a leap of faith that you make. But when you cut that person loose, everybody else, and then all of a sudden the disengaged become engaged and the ordinary turns into extraordinary.
Man, very well said, Brian. I love it. So I'm glad it's bobbing for apple. What was it? Bad apple Bob and not cancerous Kurt. So that's that works for me.
Yeah.
But I think we have a new chapter. We're gonna put it. Maybe we'll ask ChatGPT to help us write a chapter about Bad Apple Bob.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea because every company has one. And here's the thing: it might not just be you can also label your customers the same way. Identify characters as customers because there are personas. because you have a bad apple Bob customer and it's late paying their bills, that's really demanding of your employees, that's always calling up, you're putting out the same fire day in and day out. You feel like you should almost be wearing a fireman's outfit when you go to work. And you have to identify what is the root cause of those fires. And when you do, it may surprise you. Top salesperson, second biggest customer, longest supplier to my business. And when I look at that and I say, okay, I need to get rid of all three of them. And this is going to be painful, but I know that the short-term pain is going to be replaced by much, that people will be willing to stay with me, and I got commitment from my employees that if I fire this second biggest customer that we have, that we're going to be able to replace that revenue through other existing business or new business.
Hey, man, addition by subtraction. That is some great advice right there. Hey, I want to shift gears for a second here, Brian, and that is the name of the show is Unlocking Moves, where we talk about those key pivotal moments or decision points that change the trajectory of your career or maybe your life. Would you mind sharing what your unlocking move or moves might be?
Yeah, sure. So I would say that I've only been let go from 2 jobs in my entire life. And both times it was the same person. How about that? The first time it was like getting hit in the back of my head with a 2x4. I was at a company and the president of the company asked me to fire somebody on my team. And I said, who? He said, I don't care. Just, I want to make a statement. And it was a bad time in our business, in our industry. And I said, I disagree. I said, everybody on my team is working their ass off. And even firing one person it's not going to light a fire under them. The fire is already there. And I was young too. I was probably 32, 31 or something. And I had a pretty big job at the company. And so he said, okay, fine. We'll do it your way. And so I left the meeting, and unbeknownst to me, he told my boss, okay, we're going to fire Brian. Right. And this was so 3 months later. And now I've hired somebody who I think is going to be my number 2. The person was actually going to take my job. And so I remember walking in one day, and I had gone on a business trip, and it's 7 a.m. And I walk into my office. My boss calls me in, and he said, yeah, we need to talk. I'm like, oh, what happened now? And he said, your job's been eliminated. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I didn't hear that. Like, that, what? And, sure enough, this was 3 months in the making. I didn't see any signs. I was working my ass off. And that was the 2x4. I remember driving home from my office, and I actually called my mother and I said, hey, I just got fired from my job. I've got, a wife, I've got 3 kids, I got a mortgage. Now, I did have a severance package that was going to take care of me for a while, like almost a year. And I wasn't thinking about that, but I was thinking about, and she said, well, what's the problem then? I said, security. And she said, Brian, the only security you're ever going to need in your life is between your ears.
Let's go, mama. I love it.
I got to tell you that I've applied that to so much in my life, where going through difficult situations, they also told me, my parents also told me, never worry twice. Like, if you write down all of the things that you ever worried about, most of them never come true. Fast forward 3 or 4 years, and I swore I was never going to work for that guy again. But an opportunity came along that was just way too good to pass up. So I'm back at this company, and I'm associate publisher of this magazine. It's a pretty big magazine. And, 9/11 hits, and the advertising industry just falls off a cliff, and things are really bad. And now it's the following year, and we start laying off people, and our business is way down. And so we get a memo. We're going to have a meeting in 6 weeks. And I said, well, I know what's coming. We're all getting laid off. And my boss says to me, not on my watch. I'm protecting you. And this is, you're going to be okay. And I walk into my office. I go, he's full of, whatever, the brown stuff. Not sure if this is PG or what, but
can say whatever you want on this show, my friend.
So I spend the next 6 weeks crafting my business plan, and then we're getting to the point where it's the 0 hours coming, And I've got my whole business plan ready to go. I've got clients. I've got everything set up. And I say to my wife, oh, what if he doesn't fire me? And sure enough, I'm on vacation. I told him I wouldn't go on vacation. It was going to happen. He goes, go on vacation. Don't worry about it. I go on vacation. Monday morning, 9:30, Brian, we're letting you go. And I just laughed. And I thought, okay. And that day, I started my own company, my own publishing company. And so as I like to say, I turned chicken shit into chicken salad.
The number of people who start their companies after a layoff or termination or something like that is huge, as you know from your own audience. Yeah. So congrats to you and kudos to you for making that chicken salad, right? So I love it. And hopefully, I know you've inspired some other people. I love the advice from Mama. The only security you need is between your ears. Let's go, baby.
Yeah, that's hard. That's hard to embrace. You have to do that every day. Sometimes the best advice can often feel like it's on shaky ground. You want something much more tangible that you feel like you can hold on to. But that really what it says to me is you have to believe in yourself. You are the only security you're going to ever need in life. You can make the right decisions. And even if you make the wrong decisions, you can correct them. Nothing is, permanent unless it's marker and it's on your face and you're in college.
Well, what you just said over the last 30 seconds is worth the price of admission. Whatever you paid for this podcast, it's worth it right there. Thanks, Brian, for sharing that. I was going to ask you, I believe that I am the listener's advocate, so I want to ask whatever might be on the mind of listeners out there. I was going to ask you, what's the best advice that you would give entrepreneurs out there? Maybe you've already given it with both your mama's advice and what you just suggested. Anything else that pops out at you?
Be grateful. Gratitude. I have 3-word mantras that I love to carry around with me. And the one I'll share with listeners today is that gratitude changes everything. You chose the roller coaster of business, right? There are going to be highs, there are going to be lows. Be grateful you're on the ride, and enjoy the, going up and coming down and make the most of it. It's when you're grateful, when you live in the present moment and you are enjoying today and you're grateful for it, you're not focused on the past. Everything that happened in the past has led you to where you are today. And if you're happy, be grateful for all of the people who fired you, who let you go, who got you to where you are today. Because change one thing in the past, you change everything that you have today. So are you happy? If you are, be thankful. And then as far as going forward, there are going to be bumps in the road and there are going to be dead ends and there are going to be stressful moments. Enjoy it, accept it, and learn from it. And if you can do that, you'll worry less, you'll stress less, and you'll be in a better position to take advantage of the opportunities that come along.
And Brian, that is deep, and I really appreciate that counsel. You're so right. And if we have that attitude, for gratitude, it makes us a better person. But what I really like about what you said is you are where you are for a reason. You are where you are. The experiences, the warts, the wounds, the celebrations, everything that came before is what sets you up for the next phase of your life, your career, what have you. So thank you for that strong counsel.
My pleasure. Like I said, I love helping people. I love sharing the messages that I've learned. So if I've helped anybody today, that makes my day.
I love it. Let's go. So we're at the point in the show where I ask you, what is one question that you never get asked, but right, you either wish that they would, or maybe you're kind of glad that they don't?
I'd like to think that people can ask me almost anything. I think in the past, I never wanted people to ask me what was the worst thing that happened to you in business, because it was bankruptcy. In 2010, I had my own publishing company. And in 2000, and we printed money for years, and it was great. And then things started to turn in 2006. I almost sold my company in 2005, and we missed that window. But in 2006, the advice I got from somebody, the guy who was going to buy me, I completely changed the way I did my business. And I started investing heavily in my own magazines, in a conference division, in a website. And I took a lot of the money that I made and I poured it into those things. Well, of course, then the recession hit. And man, that was I went from top of the mountain to the bottom of the valley in less than 2 years. And I remember saying to myself, how did I get into this position? It was embarrassing. It was humiliating. It was discouraging. I mean, it was everything that you can imagine. And I wound up having to declare bankruptcy. And I remember I said, I am never going to mention this ever, because that was just like, man, it hurt. It hurt a ton. And as I came out of it and I started to talk to more and more people, especially incredibly successful people, multi-millionaires, and even a few billionaires, it seemed like the one thing they all had in common is that they went bankrupt at one point in their careers, in their lives. A good friend of mine went bankrupt twice in 14 years.
Wow.
And what you realize is that success is measured by how high you climb or how high you bounce off the floor. I think that's what the expression of it. And you are like, I help people now when I talk about it. When like people are telling me, oh, how bad things are. And I said, well, have you ever declared bankruptcy? Because I have. And here's where I am today as a result of that. So it's not that I like to talk about it, but I'm comfortable talking about it now.
Well, I love the candor and transparency, and I hope a lot of our listeners are inspired by that, because most of us have some sort of failure or challenge that we have had to overcome. And as I like to say, the winners in life aren't the ones who never fail. The winners in life are the ones that never quit. So
love that.
Love it.
Love that.
So Brian, where can we find out more about you or Small Business Edge?
Well, you can find on social media for sure. I'm on Twitter at Brian Moran. I'm on LinkedIn. All of the platforms, Instagram, our website, smallbusinessedge.com. I have 4 podcasts that we do for small businesses. We have the Small Business Edge podcast, which is weekly. I have something called Bricks or Sticks, which I love. This is my new passion project. We have workshops that we do. We have a podcast which takes children's fairy tales like Cinderella, Snow White, Emperor's New Clothes, The Giving Tree, and we apply the lessons from those books and TV shows and movies, and we apply them to doing business today. That's fun. So that's bricksorsticks.com. And yeah, so anywhere you find me, mention this podcast and let's connect. I'll connect with you on any platform. Happy to talk to you about your business.
Man, I love that Bricks and Sticks. That sounds pretty fun, actually. So I want to hear Snow White and Pinocchio and the whole bit. So that sounds awesome.
Thank you.
So Brian, on that note, we're going to wrap this puppy up. I invite everybody to go like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and go check us out at YouTube for the video version. And Brian Moran, thanks so much for sharing your story and being authentic. And I love what you're doing for the small business and entrepreneurial community.
Thank you, Kurt. I appreciate being on your show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you.
If you're an entrepreneur and you think you might have outgrown a member of your team, or maybe you've got a mic, as we talked about in Who's Your Mic, check out this quiz at who'syourmic.com/quiz. That's who'syourmic.com/quiz.